Hello there, Saltines. I am back here with another mini episode. Um, we continue to have some technical difficulties with some of our equipment, and that combined with the fact that Austin has been caught up in the tail end of a 6 month course, and he is trying to get all of his students to kind of complete that course and make sure that they all are where they need to be kind of before the completion of the course. He has not really been available. It's just been, again, kind of another week that's been pretty crazy for us. But I did want to get on here and talk a bit about a topic that was suggested to us by one of our regulars, by one of you lovely people. I wanted to talk a bit about psychometry. And I'm actually probably a good person to talk about this because that is actually one of the ways over the years that I have been effectively able to do a lot of my spiritual work. I think on the podcast, we've talked in the past a lot about how all of us as individuals are, we're all kind of wired a bit differently, right? In that we connect with spirit, we sense spirit, we even feel like our own power as magical practitioners, that we see and we feel a lot of these things really, really working very differently, person to person, right? And that's a good thing. That's how it's supposed to work. And that's one of the other reasons why anybody who wants to pursue any kind of spiritual practice needs to work to become comfortable with that independent kind of an approach that like it's all kind of really on you, right? And that's how it needs to be, right? Because it's your journey, and ultimately you're going to connect to whatever you're doing differently than other people will. But back to psychometry. Psychometry is the ability to be able to sense, to connect, and to read etheric kinds of energies, spiritual kinds of energies, even down to things like energetic memories that may attach to particular items and places. To be able to read those things on a psychic, on an intuitive level, but you still need to kind of get your physical body in there. And so specifically, you're going to find people who work psychometrically to do this. They usually are going to be very touch oriented. These are people they hold on to something, they touch something, they go into a space. This is one of the ways that I used to work when I was working as a ghost hunter paranormal investigator. I wasn't really, to be honest, I wasn't really hunting ghosts or working as an investigator. I was the medium on the team. I got to show up and kind of go, oh, ghost over here. Oh, ghost over here, right? And then everybody else would come and bring their equipment, right? But one of the ways that I would work as a medium in those situations was actually to go in and to touch things. I would go into places, the buildings we were investigating and moving through. And I've done this same thing in years since, as I've done energetic clearings on people's homes, and unfortunately on occasion even banishings on people's homes, where I've gone in and I've felt a pull, right? Intuitively, I felt a draw to go to a particular place, but it wasn't until I actually had a chance to put my hands on an item, on a piece of furniture, on a wall, a door, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. It wasn't until I actually would have a chance to connect with that item, that thing physically, that I would really start to get clarity on what it was I was seeing and the communication that was coming through from spirit. One of the reasons I think that has worked for me, and why I think that process or psychometry as a skill works for a lot of people, is because we all do tend to, I think, be we can't help but be connected to our physical being, right? And our body, a lot of people forget this, but our body, though our mind is constantly moving, right? And we're constantly sensing things, even more subtle, etheric, psychic kinds of magical kinds of energies, right? Our body still is also in a constant state of communication with us, and our body is very good at relaying information, right? We all, I think, can see that in action when we think of things like the fight or flight, right? Where you find yourself in a moment, right? Or you get a sense, an inkling of danger or trouble, and that adrenaline kicks in, right? Your body reacts. And people who also, I think, have a lot of skill, usually naturally as physical mediums, are going to probably also have some strength with psychometry as a skill, because it all kind of runs through the physical body. So psychometry is a really cool thing. I don't think it's really a rare thing. I think that a lot of people are just in a place, because of the influence of a lot of New Age spirituality. We see that a lot of people have become less and less connected to the heavier, more physical, grounded component of our being, right? Everything's kind of, telling people like, well, we have to focus on what's going on out here in the ether, right? And yeah, and no, you really, you need to have a balance, right? So psychometry, whether it be something that you are naturally skilled in or something that you would like to try to develop, it is actually a really good practice for helping people to hold on to a good physical ground whilst also doing some very cool spiritual work. So psychometry, as I was mentioning a moment ago, I don't really think it's a rare thing, but I think most people tend to be, unfortunately, and for a number of reasons, not just spiritual stuff, but mundane stuff, past traumas, these kinds of things. A lot of people tend to be, I think, very shut down physically. And so it takes a bit of work. They could be getting sensations, they could be picking up on things, and just not really recognizing those signs, right? So it just takes, again, a little bit of work to develop or to kind of reopen, to strengthen, right? So a really quick exercise that I usually like to have students of mine do on psychometry into developing or strengthening that ability, if they have it, is to be deliberate about touching things, right? And I know, right, we're in like we're still dealing with a post-corona, although not really, right? Because it's still around and people are still behaving foolishly about it. But we're still kind of in this situation, I think, as a collective, right, as humanity, where we're like, well, it's still probably not a good idea just to be out there touching stuff or touching people, right? And yes, absolutely. But you can still do this work by going out into, say, like a local, like a natural area, a local park, and just placing your hand upon the palm of a tree, or your palm upon the bark of a tree, the trunk of a tree, right? Excuse me. Things in your home, right? That that you personally don't feel a strong emotional connection. And I should clarify, things that are older, right? Things that have had time to kind of pick up a charge or to have some energy connect with them, attached to them, right? These are anything that would really kind of fall into that category is going to be ideal for you to practice on. Don't practice on new stuff. I remember years ago, I was working a psychic fair, and I was offering, I was doing mediumship work, but again, with my process, the person that was organizing the fair kind of made it clear that I worked through psychometry, and a gentleman that came to the fair that day had never really seen anything like that in action, which is, unfortunate, but also I felt kind of bad for him, because I think that when he sat down with me, he was expecting me to, I don't know what he was expecting. Like I was going to be waving my hands magically there. I have no idea what he thought I was going to be doing. But basically, he brought an object. He handed object to me, and through that physical connection, I started to pick up on the memories and the intuition and the spirit that was connected to that object. And that was how I was able to do a reading for him. Right? But he got it, right. Like he brought something old, something that belonged to a loved one of his who had died a few years prior in very unfortunate circumstances, and his big concern, of course, was, are they still struggling? Are they still in pain? Anyway, but following this guy, because I did this reading for him, and another woman that was at the event, she saw that, and she saw the emotional reaction that this guy was having, right? He was like, tears, and me too, tears, and anyway, after he got up and left my table, right? She decided, oh, I want to do this too. This seems like something really, really cool. So she sits down and she hands me a pair of earrings, little stud earrings, little gemstone or diamond earrings, right? And I'm holding these, and I'm not really picking up on anything. Like I'm not getting anything from these earrings, right? And and I'm after a few moments of trying to, in essence, try to force something, right? Like trying to, I gotta do this, right? I gotta impress. I gotta do this thing for this person, right? And nothing happening, right? I'm not getting anything. I stop and I just kind of look her in the eyes and I ask her, like, how long have you owned these? And she's like, oh, I bought those in a store just a couple of days ago. They were pretty. I saw them on a display, for a jewelry display in a store I like, and I bought those, and I've been wearing them in my ears. And I'm like, so you've owned these for 2 days, and they were new when you bought them? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, and I had to explain to her, like, there's nothing on these, like there's nothing there, and she was a little disappointed, I think, because she obviously didn't get the memo, she didn't understand. And anyway, so So psychometry, though, as you're practicing, you're basically going to find an item to work with, right? And it's good to choose something that you have a bit of familiarity with, right? Like something that's been around, a part of your life for a time, but something that you also don't have like 100% knowledge around, right? Like mainly, and that's kind of like a test for you, right? You're setting up a test, or kind of like you're structuring your experimentation, right? Your practice, because you want to be familiar enough with it to know, or to be able to recognize when you start to get things from that, when you hold that thing and you start to pick up emotions move through you, or you might see bright flashes of color. And these are all very intro kinds of exercises, or intro kinds of practice, okay? But you're holding the thing and you're giving yourself the space to just allow what happens to happen, right? And as I mentioned, you could be getting bright flashes of color. You could be getting particular emotion moving through you, and you can identify like, oh wow, like this can't really be my emotion because nothing has happened in the last few minutes that has triggered this in me, right? Like this isn't my emotion, right? Or you could be getting physical sensations, even in your palms, like as you're holding that item, as you're in physical connection with that item, you're getting physical symptoms in that area of your body, right? And that could be anything. It could be tingling, it could be heat, it could be a sense of pressure, it could be a cold chill, right? Because again, all different, all that's going to hit you differently, right? And you're going to allow this to occur. You're going to allow yourself just to kind of sit and feel. And one of the reasons why I recommend to start with it, it's good for you to have a little bit of an idea of what that object is and where it comes from, is as you're starting to pick up on things that are coming through, your base knowledge of that item and who else may potentially have left energy on that item, who else may be energetically connected to that item, right? That's going to give you a little bit of validation, right? You're going to be like, it's going to make sense that this wooden spoon that was my great grandma's, and she loved to cook, and she was a sweet woman, and she loved me, right? It's going to make sense to you when you sit and hold that. And this is just an example, right? It's going to make sense to you, I would hope, that as you're holding an item like that and trying to connect to her energy, you're going to have emotions around like that love and that connection, right? You're going to have memories and things coming up of her and for her, from her, right? That are going to, and you're going to be able to say, this makes sense because this was who this belonged to, right? That's one of the things I recommend people try as they're beginning, okay? A lot of people want to just go right out to like just an antique shop, right? And they want to just go and put their hand on whatever they see, right? And they want to start to kind of read and pull things, and that's acceptable as well. Okay. The problem with that is that you are then most likely dealing with a situation where you don't have any way to validate what you're getting. And so it can be, or can seem, almost kind of like a futile exercise, right? So that's a simple way to kind of get started with your practice. Beyond that, noisy street traffic. Beyond that, document your experience, right? Because there's always going to be that moment where you pull something and maybe it logically doesn't make sense. But if you have it documented somewhere, that gives you time to be able to maybe do a little bit of research, right? And see if you can get some validation. Or who knows, maybe you're wrong, and that happens too, right? None of us are right 100% of the time, right? I think we've said it before, any psychic, any spiritual practitioner that tells you that they get it right 100% of the time, that person is full of shit. And you probably don't want to learn with them. Psychometry is a really cool thing to try to add to your kind of your practice, your processes, right, in your own spiritual practice, and try different things. If you're someone who does tend to be a little more on the witchy side, try to connect psychometrically to like base elements, things like water. I shouldn't say base elements, should I? Because that's not quite the same thing. But water. The next time you've got a few minutes just for an experiment, right? Or the next time maybe you're in the shower, or you're taking a bath, right? Allow your body beyond just the temperature and the physical sensation of the water moving over you. Allow your body to also maybe connect to the animistic spirit of water in that state, right? You can do the same thing with stones. So many people love their stones and their crystals, right? And you can absolutely psychometrically connect with those stones, right? For this, to begin with, I recommend that you start with natural stones, and particularly stones that are kind of around your home and your property, places that you visit regularly. Okay, the spirits of those stones are going to be much more likely to connect and communicate with you. Okay, and be honorable, respect those things. If you pick them up to work with them in this capacity, ask them for permission, make sure they're okay, and when you are done, take them back to where you found them. Okay, that's how we want to make sure we're good neighbors. Spiritually, we need to be good or better neighbors. Okay, I recommend natural stones. Crystals, though people love crystals, by the time that, just on average, by the time that pretty polished crystal gets to you and your hand, that crystal has been through some really horrendous within the gem harvesting industry. If any of you guys have not done any research into what commonly happens, the evils of the gemstone, the crystal industry, right? I recommend that you do a little bit of research. There's a lot of really awful and ugly things that happen in that industry and in the places where a lot of these big corporations go in and they force people off their land. They mine and dig and destroy natural habitats in the process. It's really bad. Something to consider, not trying to ruin your experience with your crystals, right? But that's a reason that we don't really carry a lot of crystals in our shop. We really don't want to be a part of that bad thing. Anyway, so you can work with natural things. As I mentioned several moments back, you can put your hand, like go into a park, rest your hand on the bark of a tree and open up and see what that tree has to tell you, right? Really anything that you can come into connection with that has been in existence for a time and is likely to carry a bit of spirit, not only its own, but energy from others, right? Psychometry, kind of moving in a different direction in this topic. Psychometry is an interesting thing when you think about the context of spirit interaction, the way that we interact with spirits. And I want to say specifically, like one example I really want to kind of focus on is hauntings, okay? Psychometry is an interesting ability to cultivate, or a skill to have when you find yourself entering a space, maybe your home, right? Living in a space where that there is some sort of haunting phenomena happening there, right? And there are a couple of things that happen with hauntings, things that we can identify as hauntings or haunting phenomena, right? One, you're dealing with an intelligent spirit, an actual intelligent spirit of some sort. Could be human, maybe not, who knows, right? And it's there. And those hauntings, I think, will feel very different for a number of reasons. One, you're never really entirely sure what's going to be going on. Those spirits, while they might do things, similar things again and again, you're still dealing with an intelligent spirit that is able to communicate, that is able to give you new answers and new information once communication is established, and a spirit that is going to be capable of doing different things than maybe they've done before, to try to freak you out a little bit, right? The other type of haunting phenomena that we see really commonly is actually more likely to be an energetic echo or a memory, an imprint, a psychic imprint that can happen. There are places, homes, physical places, even out in natural places, like out in the wild, right, where for whatever reason something really important, something really momentous, something really amazing, something really tragic, it could be whatever, right? Something that happened, and in the time that it happened, not only were the people, the animals, whatever, not only were they affected in some way energetically, but the plants, the stones, the earth, just everything around that place also can often imprint with an echo or a memory of that experience. And that's one of the reasons why there are places out there in our world where it doesn't matter what's going on in that space now, because of the very tragic history of that house or whatever it is, right? That home may never ever really feel like a home again, right? And the people that maybe find themselves in that space are always going to feel that sense of unease or fear around just that lingering energy, that echo. But with psychometry, when you go into these situations, you're picking up on both of those. You're going to be picking up not only on intelligent spiritual activity that's going on, but also on that echo, that memory. And it's good to, as you kind of learn how psychometry works for you, right? It's good for you to be able to figure out or to come up with a way to be able to determine which is which, so that you don't think that you are engaging with an intelligent being, a spirit that's able to really kind of give you more, right? And to actively communicate that you're actually, you've got something like that, instead of, something that's just going to basically be like a repeating tape, right? Because that's what echoes and memories do. They basically just kind of repeat. It's the same thing again, same thing again, same thing again. Right? And that can be a little confusing, particularly, even outside the topic of psychometry. That kind of haunting phenomena, or distinguishing those two, can be really confusing for a lot of people. It takes a little bit of time to figure those things out, to really have an idea of what it is you're dealing with. So a little bit on psychometry anyway. It's a cool ability, and just one more thing that people, I think, can potentially add to their tool belt when it comes to their spiritual work and their psychic work. Yeah, give it a shot. There are lots of resources out there for psychometry. Absolutely. You can find stuff all over the place, and as always, you can answer or ask questions here when this video gets posted. Okay. So here's a little bit of a mini episode anyway to kind of tide you over again another week. I'm really sorry. In the next week, Austin will be done with his course, and we will hopefully have a little more free time to be able to chat and visit. In the coming weeks, we have some really cool guests scheduled. We've got somebody that's been on the podcast before who will be returning because we just love to hear their voice. We love to talk with them. We've got some new people that we have not had on the podcast. And we're going to be having Jack, one of our saltines here, who was gracious enough to let us join him on his podcast, Songs and Sorcery. We're going to have Jack on an episode and have a chance to visit with him again and get some more insight into his spiritual work, kind of what he's got going on. So it'll be a good thing. So again, send us questions. We already have a lot of questions from the last few weeks. So on next week's episode, we will get to answering those questions. If you've been waiting for an answer to a question and we haven't gotten back to you, okay, we will be getting back to you with some of those, okay? That's pretty much it. So thank you so much as always for listening, for watching, for supporting the podcast in whatever way you do, okay? And we'll be talking back at you again soon. Bye.